Hello, how you doing out there? Get your giant memory stick up in the cloud. What do I mean by that? Well, Amazon S3 is a cost-effective object storage service you can use to store documents, images, audio, video, or any other type of file. In this video, I will show you how you can write and read back a file from S3 using a Lambda function. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to quickly provide an overview of what we're going to cover in this video. First, I will show you a system diagram of the application. After that, I will show you the configuration for the Lambda function and the Python code that integrates with Amazon S3. Next, I will show you the results of running our Lambda function that integrates with Amazon S3. After this, I will step through some of the key Amazon S3 features. And lastly, I'll summarize the key points you should take away from this video. Okay, let's get into it. In this video, I will be creating a Lambda function that integrates with Amazon S3. The function will write a file to S3 and then read it back. The Lambda function will log the results to the execution console so that we can verify it worked. Quickly, I want to share some key concepts of Amazon S3. S3 has buckets. Buckets can contain objects. Objects can be documents, audio, video, or any other type of file. In this video, our Lambda function will just be writing and reading a text file to Amazon S3, but you can see that S3 supports many other types of files. S3 Standard, which is the basic storage class, gives you 11 nines of durability and 4 nines of availability. I'll talk to this a little bit more later in the video. Now I navigate to the Lambda service in the AWS console. I click the Manage Functions button. I want to create a new Lambda function, so I click Create Function. I enter a meaningful function name and I select Python 3.8 as my language runtime. I use all the other defaults and click Create Functions. Before I edit the Python code, I want to edit some configuration for my Lambda function. I click the Configuration link. I click the Permissions link, and then I click the role associated with my Lambda function. I am now in the AWS IAM role homepage for the role associated with the Lambda function. I add the policy Amazon S3 full access to the role. I created a video earlier called AWS Lambda plus IAM roles, where I walk through the detailed steps and add policies to an existing role. Check this video out if you want to see how I did this in a step-by-step manner. In the interest of time, I'm going to continue in this video. Now I click the code link so I can edit my Python code for the Lambda function. When I created the Lambda, the AWS Lambda service auto-generated a default function for me. I click the test button to quickly run it. The first time I run my Lambda function, I get a pop-up wanting me to define a test event. I enter event name and click Save. Then I click the test button again and test the default Lambda function. I get back a success message as I would expect, and now it's time to edit my Python code. Now I expand out the code editor to take advantage of the full screen. I add in my Python code. I click the Deploy button to upload my new Lambda function to AWS Cloud. The entry point for my Lambda function is Lambda Handler. The Lambda Handler initializes some variables such as bucket name, file name, and file contents. We're going to write the text Memento Mori, live each day like it's your last, to a file up in S3. After the variable initialization, the Lambda handler calls write file to S3, which writes the file to S3. I pass the bucket name, the file name, and the file contents to this function. I log the results to the execution console using the print statement. Next, the code reads back the file from S3. I call the function read file from S3 and read back the file from S3. I pass in the bucket name and the file name. The function returns the file contents and the results are logged to the execution console using the print statement. Now, before I run this Lambda function, I'm going to go to Amazon S3 homepage in the AWS console. I click the buttons link to see a summary of my existing buckets in S3. I have an existing bucket I want to use called video-000110-bucket. I click into this bucket. Under Actions, I create a logical folder named video-000300 in my S3 bucket. Once a folder is created, I click the logical folder video-000300 to see what's in the folder. The folder is empty to start with. This is what I would expect. Now I'm ready to test my Lambda function. I click the test button. In the execution results tab, I can see the Lambda function logs. The logs look good. I first wrote the text "Memento mori, live each day like it's your last" to a file up in S3. Then I read back the file from S3 and extracted the same text, "Memento mori, live each day like it's your last." This is exactly what I would expect. Now, let's go back to S3 and navigate to our bucket and logical folder. We can see that there's a file that was created by our Lambda function. This looks good. Now I want to share some key features of Amazon S3. The first is S3 storage classes. But before I talk about storage classes, I want to quickly introduce the concept of regions and availability zones. AWS Cloud has the concept of regions. There's at least a half dozen in the United States. Regions exist in Europe, Asia, South America, Middle East, Australia. They're spread all over the world. And a region is made up of availability zones, at least 3. An availability zone is equivalent to a data center. And all of the data centers or availability zones that are part of a region are geographically very close to each other, within a few miles. And they're connected with high-speed connectivity. Each data center or availability zone has redundant power and network out to the internet. So they're very redundant pieces of infrastructure. Now, with that in mind, let's talk about storage classes. The default storage class is S3 standard. This storage class automatically replicates your data to multiple storage nodes within the AZ as well as across AZs. This is good for data you can't afford to lose or data you can't recreate. So let's talk about the next storage class. This is S3 standard and frequent access. This is good for data you rarely access but still need low latency. Your storage costs are lower than S3 standard, but you're charged a small amount when you retrieve data. The next storage class is S3 Express One Zone. In this storage class, your data is stored in one AZ, so it's good for data you can recreate. Again, the pricing here is less expensive. The next storage class is S3 One Zone and Frequent Access. Again, in this storage class, your data is stored in one availability zone, the pricing is lower, and you're charged a little bit more when you go retrieve data. The next family of storage classes are for long-lived data that you want to archive. They are S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval, S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval, and S3 Glacial Deep Archive. All of these storage classes provide price points that are much lower in terms of storage and give you flexibility in retrieval. Again, you're charged on a per retrieval basis. The last storage class I want to talk about is S3 Intelligent Tiering. When you select this storage class, you allow Amazon S3 to store the data in a storage class it thinks makes the most economic sense given your access patterns. So for many use cases, this might be the best storage class to use. The next feature of Amazon S3 I want to talk about is Lifecycle Management. This allows you to set up lifecycle rules like deleting files after so many days or moving files from one storage class to another after a certain amount of time. This is a great feature to use to manage your costs. The next feature is replication. Now, I already talked about how S3 automatically replicates across N storage nodes and across N availability zones, but S3 also allows you to explicitly configure replication from one bucket to another The destination bucket can be in the same region or in another region, so you can build in additional replication into your system. The next feature is S3 event notifications. This feature allows you to configure events when a file is written or updated or deleted or any other type of action on S3. If you're building a system with an event-driven architecture, this feature is something you really want to look into. The next is access management, data safety. This whole area is really important to Amazon. With S3, you're able to leverage all the security and privacy controls you're used to in AWS Cloud to ensure your data is safe and secure. So in summary, Amazon S3 gives you object storage. It's your giant memory stick up in the cloud. It's fully managed. There's no infrastructure for you to worry about. Amazon S3 Standard gives you 11 nines of durability. This is a measure of probability that your file will not be lost. They do this with all that replication I talked about a little earlier in the video. Amazon S3 also gives you 4 nines of availability. What this means is that 99.99% of the time, when you go try to get a file, you'll get a response back. The service will be up and available. So you can see that Amazon S3 is a fundamental service used in many systems in AWS Cloud. So thanks for watching. All videos referenced will be in the YouTube description. I invite you to watch other videos on my channel. If you like the way I'm packaging up this content, please consider subscribing. And one last thing, we all love technology and are excited about all the innovation in AWS Cloud with machine learning and AI. But don't forget to live in the real world. Go outside, go swimming, go hiking, go surfing, go climbing, move your body. And if you do, let me know in the comments. And with that, have a great day. Thank you.